Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk Nerdy. Today is Monday, October 13th, 2025, and I'm the host of the show, Dr. Cara Santa Maria. And as always, before we dive into this week's episode, I want to thank those of you who make Talk Nerdy possible. Remember, this show is and will always be 100% free to download, and that is because I rely on the support of individuals just like you. You help offset that cost so that those who can't afford to pay never have to. And the way we do that is through the Patreon subscription. All you've got to do is visit www.patreon.com/talknerdy to learn how you can pledge your support on an episodic basis. This week's top patrons include Chuck Blell, David J. E. Smith, Daniel Lang, Mary Neva, Joseph Lamore, Anu Bhadavaj, David Compton, Brian Holden, Gabrielle F. Jaramillo, Ulrika Hagman, Pasquale Gelati, and Joe Wilkinson. All right, let's get into it. For the third time, she may be my most frequent guest. I had the opportunity to chat once again with author and illustrator Rachel Ignotofsky. You may remember her from early on when she was on the show talking about her book, Women in Science, and a little later on when she joined us to talk about the history of the computer. She's written several books, including both of those, along with Women in Sports, Women in Art, The Wondrous Workings of Planet Earth, What's Inside a Caterpillar Cocoon, What's Inside a Flower, and What's Inside a Bird's Nest. She also has fabulous art prints, puzzles, sticker books, coloring books, and so much really, really cool swag that goes along with all of those books. But she has a new book out, and I might be the most excited about this one. It's called Dinosaurs, Exploring Prehistoric Life and Geological Time. So without any further ado, here she is, Rachel Ignotofsky. Well, Rachel, thank you for coming back now, I think for the third time on Talk Nerdy.
Well, I just can't get enough of you, Cara. I got to keep coming back.
It's so funny. I was like Googling to find out, and it looks like we first recorded in October of 2017, and that was when Women in Science first came out. And then we recorded in November of 2022 when The History of the Computer came out. And now we are recording in October of 2025 to celebrate your new book, Dinosaurs. Ooh, it's so exciting.
I know. When I was hanging out at your place, I saw all the beautiful trilobite fossils like on the wall and on display. And I was like, oh, I got to reach out to Cara and then I actually have some trilobites now too myself. They're not as cool as yours, but I dug some up in Utah. And now I got
that's way cooler that you found them yourself.
They're way less impressive than yours, but I do like they're my oldest antiques at like 500 million years old. So I'm really excited by them.
I have to say, I mean, at this point you have so many books, and I, obviously couldn't have you on every time you had a new book, but it does seem to be the case that the three times that I've had you on the show are highlighting, I'm a little biased, but like my three favorite books that you've written and illustrated. So Women in Science obviously was the first, right?
Yeah, that was my very first book.
Very first. And that really got you on the map. It was like a game changer. Everybody fell in love with it for very good reason. When History of the Computer came out, it felt like a little bit of a shift. Obviously, the design is in keeping with your kind of unique style, but the topic felt a little, I don't know, maybe a little older, more sophisticated. I think it still probably appeals to a wide audience, but it definitely felt really in depth. Not that your other books aren't, but that book was, I mean, I don't know, I learned a lot when I read it. Like it was kind of like challenging.
That book was challenging to make. That was
I can imagine.
that was some break your back work. Well, I really try to I always say, like, I want to make a book for every reader, because I think at every age group, it's really important to sort of like get people excited about scientific literacy. So I did
Mm-hmm.
my Women in series, and that started all the way back in 2015. And the first book, Women in Science, published in 2016. And then I was on tour for a while for that. And uh, I, that was written at very much a middle grade reading level, where it was like these
Mm-hmm.
stories about these amazing women. And it's so funny that you just bring it up, because I was just thinking about that book because Jane Goodall passed away yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And in writing about her and sort of just like learning about her passion for conservation and just her philosophy of scientific literacy, in the book, while I was writing Women in Science, that has actually informed my entire career. So all of the sort of philosophies that I've had from Women in Science, not only just sharing women's history and untold stories, but also wanting people to just be excited about science in general and feel comfortable learning about hard topics. I've taken
Mm-hmm.
that into my entire career. So whether it's with like my picture book series, which is literally for like elementary school kids about backyard biology, or something like the history of the computer, which is almost like a sexy textbook that's actually being used in like colleges right now, but also can, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a precocious 10-year-old, you could get into that as well. Like, I just want people to understand the science and technology that's all around them so that they can ask for something better if they need to. Like, especially with the history of the computer, I wanted people to be able to understand where this technology came from, even if they don't know how to code or build a computer. I mean, I sure don't. I'm an art school kid. I don't know how to
Yeah.
build a computer, but I can still ask for my technology to be better if I understand the principles and philosophies behind it. So that's what I really wanted to do with that book. And with this new book, Dinosaurs, I feel like I've taken everything that I've learned from my entire career, whether it's working on scientific history with like the women books, or really complicated topics like the computer books, or the making really goofy looking animals like all the picture books I've been working on. And I put all of that I took all of that and put that into this book, Dinosaurs. So this really feels like the culmination of all of the books that I've been working on so far. And we talk about not just dinosaurs, we talk about over 4.5 billion years of Earth history in this book.
I absolutely love it. And I do see a lot of sort of parallels and similarities with your book, The Wondrous Workings of Planet Earth, where you did such a beautiful job of discussing and describing ecology from multiple angles. And just like the computer book, I feel like the Planet Earth book, it's a sexy textbook. Like, I remember as I was reading it, I was like, this is the book we should have been using when I was taking this in high school. And now that I'm looking at your dinosaur book, I feel the same way. I was lucky enough when I was like a freshman in college at my local community college to take a class. And I always say this, and it's not tongue in cheek. This is absolutely true. I tell people I took a paleontology class, but in the course guide, it was actually written as dinosaurs in all capital letters with an exclamation point.
Yes,
And
yes.
this should have been our textbook. Of course, it wasn't around then, right? It's new. But this would have been such a brilliant textbook for that sort of intro paleontology course, because you approach it in, I mean, I hate to say that it's a fresh way, because it should have been the way we've always been learning about dinosaurs. You don't just go, here's a bunch of stuff we know. You break it down with kind of different categorization so that we can look at geologic history through different lenses. And you do a really, really brilliant job of contextualizing dinosaurs, not only in geologic time, but also in the scientific processes that are used for us to discover. You really answer the question, how do we know what we know? Which I think is often missing when we talk about paleontology, especially with a younger audience.
You know, it's so funny that your class was called Dinosaurs, because that's like the exact same like sort of like thought process I went through in titling this book. Because the first title for this book was like geological time, because like and then we kind of realized I'm like, no one's going to buy a book that's just called Geological Time. They want they want the dinosaurs. Give the
Oh
people what
yeah.
they want. And of course, dinosaurs is like a big meaty part of this book. But deep time will mess you up.
Yeah.
And it is like hard to understand. It is the same feeling you get when you look into the vastness of space and start to contemplate like what does it mean that there's an infinite number of stars? And when you
Mm,
start trying to comprehend how old the earth is, what does like over 4.5 billion years even feel like and look like? You start getting kind of your our little human brains can't comprehend uh, that long of a period of time. So
absolutely. And how small we are, like in that long of
yes,
a period of time.
yes, like modern humans evolved only 300,000 years ago, and it's like sort of kind of like creating a book that is structured the same way that the much smarter than me paleontologists and geologists have structured kind of the different geological time periods. So,
Hmm.
just like in a geological time scale, this book is broken down by like eons, eras, and periods. So, as you're going through the book, you're moving through geological time, and hopefully that helps you understand the sheer sort of vastness. And every single illustration in this book, I based it on real fossil beds. So everything is same
Wow.
time, same place, accurate. And even if I don't talk about it in the book, it's like deep cuts for people in the field that they're going to be like, they'll look at it and like be like, oh, it's the Morrison formation, and I'd be like, yeah.
I love
So it's it, every so like you can actually like watch how the land like I mean even though we're showing different places on Earth, you're watching how the plants and the animals have changed so drastically on this planet, and you could even sort of follow these like I like to say follow the vertebrates. You can see these sort of little wiggly guys with like proto spines and how they survived from the Cambrian and evolved all the way into the complex people we are today. So it's kind of fun to kind of watch how much everyone's changed.
Oh, and it's so brilliant the way that you sort of start the book. And again, if for everybody listening, if you haven't listened to the other episodes with Rachel or picked up any of her books before, which we didn't really get into this, but you're a brilliant artist and illustrator, and you even designed your own type, your own lettering. But these are so content heavy too, but that are fully illustrated, right? Like everything is contextualized within beautiful visuals. And so, what you did, which was so brilliant, is at the very top of the book, before you start getting into those time scales, as you mentioned, which are kind of broken up into like young Earth, like the origins of life, to life before the dinosaurs, the age of the dinosaurs, and then after the dinosaurs, is you offer the necessary information that we need to go on this journey. You describe what a geologic timescale is, you describe what a dinosaur is, you help us understand plate tectonics, the way that the geography changed, how fossils form, and what they are and what we can and can't know from them, and even things like evolution, which is a deceptively simple slash difficult concept, right? Like if you learn it, I feel like if all of us sat down and we learned about evolution today with a blank mind, we would be like, oh, it makes so much sense. It's this perfectly sort of um, beautiful system. But so many of us have misunderstandings about evolution, very often because we view it from a very sort of self-centered anthropocentric viewpoint, that it's important that you give this primer at the beginning of the book. We have to understand evolution to understand everything that's happening throughout geologic time.
Well, it's so funny because like people really understand evolution easily when you talk about dog breeding. All of a sudden, everybody
Yeah.
gets it immediately because they see that sort of micro changes in a short period, the microevolution in short periods of time, how different you could get a dog to look if you just choose the right parents. Um, but I had to explain evolution because there are so many points in the story of Earth history where evolution is like kind of what sort of repopulates like the
Mm,
planet. So, we've had five major mass extinctions in, and after each mass extinction, the planet always bounces back and
yeah.
actually bounces back often with gusto. I mean, it takes a while, but while I was writing this book, I even learned about it, this idea of adaptive radiation, that in an empty playing field without competition, many different species emerge rather quickly to fill all these ecological niches. And it explains so much. Why did pseudoscians and dinosaurs spread all over the planet after the great dying, the big Permian extinction? And then again during the Jurassic Triassic, like why did mammals really take over the planet after the asteroid impact? And the answer is evolution. And it's not just with the animals, it's with the plants as well. So it's just been wonderful learning about Earth history and to speak to that, learning about how evolution and the current ecosystem that we live in now is just so rare and precious and not normal for the earth. It's why we should really take stock in protecting it and appreciating it, this kind of moment in deep
Absolutely.
time, you know?
Yeah, and it's not guaranteed. There's definitely a lot of talk about whether or not we are moving towards a sixth extinction event. I don't think the numbers are where they would need to be compared to the five previous ones, but the rate of change is really worrying. And so we have to understand our past to understand our future and our role in it, what we can affect and what we can't affect. I have to say, as I'm here, I'm looking at the mass extinction events spread, and I just love how you drew the creatures with little X's in their eyes, and some of their tongues are hanging out. It's very
Yeah,
cute.
it's so funny because I'm like a cartoonist and an illustrator first, and then I'm a
Mhm.
science communicator second. So like in this book, and what makes it different than a lot of the other dinosaur books that are out there is that I wanted to make sure that even though all the dinosaurs in it are and all the other prehistoric animals are accurate scientifically, they're also like super silly looking and cartoony, and they have expressions in their face and big watery eyes when looking at a delicious leaf, and they're in motion, they're like running and screaming and howling. And it's like, even if you don't read a word on the page, if you flip through the book, you will learn so much just by looking at the pictures, because the pictures themselves tell a story, and you'll see how much this earth has changed. So like drawing the extinction events for me was a good time. I was like, oh no, like I'm drawing all the trilobites dying. Like it's a bummer, but
It's
my favorite thing to draw was the end of the dinosaur spread where I have this T-Rex screaming, and there's like a wall of there's like fire and tsunamis and all the stuff that the asteroid impact caused that like a T-Rex in Montana would have to experience. I have the tektites. For those who don't know, these are when the asteroid hit, all this debris shot up into space and then rained down like bullets worldwide and superheated the atmosphere and hit all the animals and caused all these wildfires. So I have like all these tektites raining down on this poor T-Rex. I
oh
had a
yeah, he
blast
looks
drawing.
terrified. I
I
love it.
mean,
He's
it
like,
was a
these little
bad day.
arms are not going to help me at all.
He had a bad day. He had a bad day.
Yeah, a real bad day. But you know what? So did all of his friends. So
What are you gonna
and you're
do?
so right. Exactly. What are you going to do? You're so right about how these illustrations, like even if you didn't read a single word on the page, even if you have a child who is pre-literate, they're going to learn a lot, and they're going to, I think, from a psychology perspective, like they're going to start imprinting a lot of these concepts visually, and even before they have the language to make sense of them. And so later, as they learn, I bet you they have these kind of sense memories. Like even a book like this, which seems like it's maybe a little sophisticated for babies, I think a baby would get a lot out of it so long as they don't chew the pages up. Um,
I wanted that feeling, like the feeling you
mm,
get when you go to the Hall of Dinosaurs at a museum where you're
yeah,
just in
yeah,
awe. I wanted to give this book that feeling, even if you didn't read a single word. And you should read the words. The words are pretty good, everybody. But,
yeah.
you know,
There's so many questions I have for you, so many about the words. But one more point I wanted to make was about kind of the whimsy, that how these things are scientifically accurate, but also deeply whimsical. Like, of course, when these creatures went extinct, they didn't have little X's over their eyes. And I'm looking at a fun fact that says that during the, I don't even know how to say it, is it the Hadean Eon? Is that how you pronounce it? All
yeah, like
right. During the
Hades.
Hadean Eon, the moon was about 15 times closer to Earth, and I see the moon, and he's saying hi, and he has a smile, or she has a smile on her face. And I'm like, yeah, we know the moon doesn't talk and the moon doesn't have a face. But other than that, this is a very accurate portrayal of where the moon was in reference to the Earth, which I absolutely love. I love all the context. I love how in these big spreads, not only do we learn about that era in time, or period, or eon, or however they're divided, but it's all contextualized. You see a whole ecosystem on the page. You see the plants, you see the animals, you see sort of who is feeding on whom, you see the things flying in the air. And I think it's so brilliant. Some of the best museum exhibits are the ones that understand they need to present these things sort of in situ, as if we were there, instead of those cold kind of earlier museum exhibits where you didn't get any concept of relation between X and Y. You just saw everything as a standalone. And I think that's why so many of us think that, certain dinosaurs lived with other dinosaurs. And it blows our minds when we learned that. I mean, what would it be like? T-Rex, for example, is closer in time to us than T-Rex is in time to some of these really early dinosaurs. I mean, that blows people's minds when they find that out.
Oh, yeah, like the Stegosaurus was already a fossil by the time the T Rex was walking around.
Which is crazy
And
because people are used to
it's
seeing them
wild.
drawn together.
Well, if something is looking like it's stuffed and pinned and isolated, even in a book, and you just turn the page and there's another stuffed and pinned animal, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You don't feel that sense of the fact that they were alive and they were not isolated. They lived in ecosystems that were extremely diverse and robust. One of the craziest things that I learned while doing this book, and it was very much because I was like visiting fossil dig sites and making sure that everything was really accurate to same time and same place, is that during the Jurassic, right here in the United States, a forest would have over 20 different types of species of longneck sauropods, all eating
Mhm.
in the same forest. These are gigantic animals. Like, how were they not competing with each other? And again, it's like by understanding evolution, you can understand this concept of niche partitioning, where it's like, okay, each of these animals had an ecological niche. Their necks could reach a certain way. They had a certain type of like mouth structure. So they actually ate different plants. It was just a big
Mm.
all you can eat buffet for all these gigantic herbivores. And then at the same time, that meant that the carnivores could get supersized because there was so much food for them to eat. So you start seeing how it all really relates to one another, and that none of these animals lived in a vacuum.
Absolutely. I'm so curious because you mentioned in a previous episode, and you sort of referenced it quickly so far during this conversation, that you are an artist and an illustrator first. That's, how you were trained. That's what your previous, or, your continued profession has always been. And then you got really interested in challenging yourself and learning about these topics in such a deep way that you could communicate them to a broader audience. So I can only imagine that when you set out to write this book, there were holes in your knowledge. There were things that you didn't know that you learned along the way in an effort to share them with us. And so that was one beautiful example. But I'm curious, can you think of other things that sort of either surprised you or you had to really shift the way that you typically think in order to communicate this new idea that turned your previous ideas on their ear?
Wow. Well, first off, we had a fantastic fact checker who is a
Mm,
paleontologist, Dr. Thomas Holtz, who looked through and made sure that everything was accurate. Um,
hmm
but as a scientific communicator, which is what I do, there was a lot of just like reading very, very heavy text, getting subscriptions to Nature, reading
hmm
the upcoming science. And I think like one of the biggest things for me was to be like, paleontology very much is a science that is ever expanding and ever changing and ever correcting itself.
hmm
So you have to really be on top of everything to make sure that it's not only accurate, but like future proof, to never phrase
Right.
something as like, this is the oldest, like, known X, Y, and Z. Like, this is
Oh,
like,
I
you
would never
can't.
even think that you can't do that because, yeah, that's going to be replaced at some point.
And it's not a learning this type of history where there's so many fill in the blanks that scientists are doing their best to use their best educated guess to try to figure out like what this animal did or what it looked like or what category it's put in. um, it's always we're always updating with better new science, and that's the beauty of science, is that we're always like open to correction.
Yeah. And, there are things that I think some of the obvious examples were, sometimes the way that the bones went together, some of the biomechanics of these different extinct creatures. When we look at old museum exhibits and old paleontology books, we often see like the theropod dinosaurs standing really, really upright. Even the sauropods, although some of them were a little more erect, but definitely the theropod dinosaurs standing really upright. And we'd never see them with feathers, for example. And now, these very accurate representations have changed a lot. Is there anything else that you ran into where you're like, wow, what we thought we knew then is very different from what we know now?
Well, it's just wild how much the technology has advanced. So
Mm,
right now, especially with some of the feathered dinosaurs, if they get a good enough fossil, they could look at the fossilized cell structure on some of these feathers and know for certain what color that feather was. So like
that's
a
amazing.
isn't that wild? So like a
Yes.
microraptor, like they're like these like kind of like feathered like little theropods, tiny little theropods going around. We know for certain that their feathers were black like a crow. So
Wow.
there's also like, you take artistic license where you can, but then you have to make sure that you're accurate when it calls for it. So there was a
Yeah.
lot of like even like color updates that I did throughout the book to make sure that like, oh yeah, like Archaeopteryx is like, it has black feathers. I have to make sure that Archaeopteryx has black feathers. Like we have found out so much very like in the past like decade. It's really
Ugh,
wild.
it is wild. And there's probably a lot of stuff that you had to learn that just isn't common knowledge, right? Like a lot of us who are I'll consider myself in their ranks, dinosaur enthusiasts. We know a lot of like trivia about dinosaurs. We might be able to name different dinosaurs, or maybe we have a general idea of when they lived or what some of their cool features were, and what scientists think they evolved those features to do. But there's so much here that's just new knowledge. It's not like it's replacing old outdated knowledge for me, but it's just filling gaps where I didn't have a lot of knowledge. Did you find that the research was really intense for this book? Like, were you really having to take on just a lot of new information?
Oh my goodness. It was all hands on deck. So I was like, this was 2 years of my life nonstop.
Mm,
My creative partner and husband, Thomas, there's a lot of Thomases on this book, but Thomas was literally fact checking me nonstop as I went, not just for like the writing, but also like who is getting featured in the illustrations next to who. Like we had to make sure that everything was same time, same place, accurate, which, you know, it sounds like it's easy, but when you're talking in like these deep time spans where if you're off by just a million years, that just feel that it starts to not feel like a lot. Like, oh,
Yeah.
like like especially when you're getting like you're showing an animal that only lived for maybe 2 million years. It's very easy to get an animal like here's an example, like T-Rex. You're drawing a T-Rex. Triceratops lived same time, same place, but you know who didn't? Like any of the duckbills. So if you
Mm.
put a Parasaurolophus in, which is a very like, you know, kind of like iconic Cretaceous period animal, you were incorrect. So some of the illustrations that I did preliminary before I got deep into the research, kind of like before I started writing the book, because kind of a look behind the curtain for people who don't know, when you pitch a book, you kind of have to pitch like a full chapter really before you've started writing it. So you pitch a full
Hmm.
chapter. A lot of those illustrations I had to completely redo because I had so much just sort of knowledge bias from what I thought was correct versus what was really correct. So there was
Wow.
a lot of that you had to do. But also, this is one of the sort of, we think about dinosaurs as always being like the kings of the Mesozoic. Like we think like the great dying happened during the Permian, and then after that, it's dino time, baby. But that's actually like very incorrect. The entire Triassic period was dominated not by dinosaurs, but by pseudosuchians, which is the reptile group that crocodiles belong to. So you have all these sort of giant crocodile like apex predators that are actually hunting these very sort of puny dinosaurs that really
Hmm.
didn't really take off until another ecological disaster, like another extinction event, wiped out most of the Pseudosuchians. So it's like also like preconceptions like that, like the Triassic period is actually like way more diverse reptile-y, like reptile-y, I just made up a word, but there's a lot more different reptiles that look like dinosaurs. Like they look straight up like dinosaurs, but they're not dinosaurs that were actually walking around during that time period. And again, extinction events, they really transform who's boss.
Oh gosh, it's incredible. I'm so much of your time. I mean, if you had to kind of divide out, you said this took about 2 years. If you had to divide out the time that you spent researching, writing, illustrating, finishing, what did you probably spend most of your time on?
Man, I would, man, that's really hard to say because you you get to a certain point in the process and you're doing rewrites and drawing at the same time.
Uh,
And so much of this book is visual storytelling, even though there's a lot, like it's a 25,000 word book, um, but a lot of it is visual storytelling. So the more that we can tell visually allows for less words on the page and allows for a more concise understanding. So if we could
mhm,
transform something into an illustration, uh, and kind of sort of like remove that explanation, then I do so. So there was a lot of
mhm.
like kind of refining once we wrote stuff, especially in the front loaded materials where I'm explaining big concepts. If I could show rather than say, you're going to create a stronger learning experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you were doing them kind of in tandem, and every time you could condense the writing down and fill up more of the page with beauty, you did.
Anytime there's an opportunity to do that, I take it. So I would say that I spent like the first year, I would say there was a year where I was just writing, writing, writing. Actually, like I remember I was like writing all over like holiday break and like losing my mind. And then the
Hmm.
next year, and it was like researching and writing. And the research actually took me to like some really interesting places because I always like to travel to do my research. So I got to visit dig sites. I wanted to visit different geological types of formations. So like we went to like the high desert out in like Utah, but then I also went to Hawaii to just look at volcanoes because, I'm drawing, it's a dinosaur book. You're going to draw volcanoes. That's just,
Yeah.
that's the deal you made. You're drawing volcanoes if you're drawing dinosaurs. But I wanted to go see a volcano and see what does it look like when new geology is being created. What does young geology look like? So I really went and did a lot of geological tourism. And then I also, but then once everything was written for a year, I was just in my studio. Every day was dinosaurs. And by the time I was done, I actually, some of the drawings that I did for the T Rex were my very first drawings for pitch. I threw those all away and redrew my T Rex completely because after a year of drawing dinosaurs, you surprisingly get very good at drawing dinosaurs. So,
Speaking of that, I mean, you packed so much into this book, but one of the things that I love about your, I guess, your repertoire, your catalog is that it's not just the books that you have. For so many of the books that you have written and published, you also have, puzzles or diaries or sticker books or coloring books. Are you planning on doing or have you already started doing any sort of companions to the book?
I have completed and sent to the printer a
Hell yes.
yeah, very exciting. We have a coloring book and a sticker book coming out. They're both called Dinosaurs. And so it's the Dinosaur Stickerology, and then it's Dinosaurs Prehistoric Life Coloring Book. And in all of those, just like the main book that they're all based on, we go all through geological time. So we go all the way to like from, I believe in the sticker book and the coloring book, we go Cambrian, and then we move all the way to Ice Age. And of course, the
Mm.
meat of it is dinosaurs. But I just think it's so cool that you can like get some of those weird Cambrian animals as a sticker in this book.
Yeah.
You know, the guys where like evolution was really messing around, where they have like five eyes and like a bunch of claws and like a big proboscis. Who's my favorite? It's I'm looking at my book right now because it's hard to remember everyone's names because they're all like in Latin. But
Yeah.
Opabina. Opabina is my favorite little dude. And I'm just so excited that you can have a sticker with Opabina on it or like color in Opabina. So I'm very excited for that.
They're all so strange. I mean, most of them must have been new to you when you were digging into these sort of Cambrian explosion creatures. Like I'm looking at hallucigenia. That is
Oh,
one
yeah.
weird looking thing.
Well, the exciting thing about hallucigenia is that it not only does its name kind of like hint at how trippy this guy looks,
Yeah.
but for a very long time, paleontologists didn't know which way it was supposed to be positioned. They were like, what are the legs? And just very recently, they have settled on, okay, these are the legs and these are the spikes to be able to understand what this little guy looked like. Um, Also, just like what I love about trilobites is really how well they fossilize and just how interesting their different shapes and sizes are. Um, what I think is really cool about trilobites is that they're the only known animal to evolve eyes made of crystal cassolite. So they have like these
Hmm.
crystal eyes that fossilize beautifully, and that's why we know so much about them. So it's just really
Oh.
cool to see like how these different animals fossilize and how much information we can get out of that, and just how it just keeps getting better and better and better.
I love that too, because I think you do a good job of explaining that bias that we have. Like we know what we know because of the techniques and the technology that we have, but what we know is not a full picture of what was. It's like it's all going to be biased towards what could fossilize, and anything that just couldn't, we will not ever know about. Or even the things that did fossilize, very often it was only its hard parts or only certain aspects of it, like its eyes. So we may not know. We have to use our imaginations to fill in the gaps.
Completely. And I believe that like the paleontologists and the scientists working on this are really good at that. But again, it's a shifting science that's always moving. This was actually really interesting. So during the Devonian period, you're when you watch like PBS shows on it or like the Nova special or even read a lot of these like illustrated books on it, they always show these giant fungus mounds that almost look like tombstones and it's very
Mm.
eerie and very cool, but it ends up that we in the past 5 years realized that that is not what they looked like and they did not exist that way and we don't even know if they're
Well,
funguses. So
uh-oh.
I started this book being like, oh, Devonian, I got that unlocked. I'm going to draw these awesome mushroom things that I've been learning about my whole life. And then I went in to like, again, I'm so happy that I made everything fossil bed based. So I'm looking at this fossil bed in New York State, based like on the certain time during the Devonian where these specific trees started to emerge. And I'm like, okay, where's my fungus? Where are they? And it became very clear that new fossils have been found and they think that it might be completely underground and and that
Wow.
what we know about them, it ended up it's like okay, so all this new fossil evidence has actually created more questions than answers and we don't know really what they looked like or if they were even fungus at all. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to draw those because I don't feel like having my book be outdated in like literally a month. So
Yeah.
there are things that you have to take into account when making a text like this to keep it accurate for as long as possible also.
Oh, and so are you just beginning the press around the book? Are you sort of halfway into it? How long have you been, recording on podcasts and going and giving talks about the book?
Well, the book comes out October 14th. So this week has been the pre-pub press has just started. So starting October 14th, I'm going to be traveling all around the country, giving talks at museums and classrooms and bookstores. And so that's when the press really starts for it. So I'm really excited to see how everyone feels about this book.
Oh, I love that. And is the press tour that you guys have worked out similar to ones in the past, or because of the actual subject matter of the book, did it allow you to go to places and to reach audiences that maybe haven't reached before?
I feel like this book is like the best of both worlds. So, like,
Mm.
for my um, sort of like women in science and the history of the computer and planet Earth, which is more of like a middle grade to adult reader, I've gotten to visit museums and like science institutes like NASA and LLNL. But with my picture books, I've been able to really do school and library where we do school assemblies. So for my picture books, I do these backyard biology books, like what they're called, like what's inside a flower, what's inside a caterpillar cocoon. And I do a big read aloud where they fill like a couple hundred kids in an auditorium and I make them all flap their little wings like butterflies and scream out things. And
Mm.
it's really cute and fun. I call it my science lecture for babies because I
Oh.
get to like ask them questions. I would be like, who here knows what photosynthesis is? And it's like really, really cute. Um, so I like, so this is like a combination where it's the best of both worlds. So like I'm doing book talks at elementary schools, I'm doing book talks at museums, and we've kind of prepared two different sort of talks that kind of cater to each crowd. So I'm really excited for it.
I love that. And do you find that very often your audiences, whether it was from your press tours in the past or what you're looking forward to now, your audiences are made up of like multiple generations? So you might have kids with their parents even, and they all get to enjoy.
Oh, yeah. I know this is like more of a movie term, but I try to make four quadrant books where I'm like, I'm hitting everyone. I got mom, I got teenager, I got dad, I got baby. Like, I really try to hit that. And that's like the power of illustration, where you can create uh, a product or a piece of artwork that has something in it for everyone. So in these books, there's illustrations that the kids are going to love. And I think everybody loves illustrations, but there's also like fun facts and sort of like just sort of interesting tidbits that like, you know, any like a older kid would really get into. There's stories
Mhm.
of discovery, like also like stuff that like I feel like teenagers would relate to. Like it's kind of really interesting. A lot of in England, in this fossil bed in England, it was actually teenagers who discovered that there was all this complex life before the Cambrian period. So they found the
Hmm.
Endicarian period animals, which are all these sort of blobs that kind of look like ferns that were kind of hanging out. Um, that was all discovered by teenagers, and all the adults were like, "It's impossible," and the teenagers actually figured it out. And then now
Wow.
it's very sound science. So like there's all these stories for teenagers, and of course like parents, older kids, and even professionals. There's enough deep cuts in this book that a professional who has studied geological time as their career, they're going to appreciate the depth and the sort of care that I've taken in this book as
Ugh,
well.
I love that so much. So, I mean, gosh, at this point, we're sort of running low on time. I'm curious, is there anything that we didn't discuss that you want to make sure that a listener of the show who's really looking forward to this book coming out knows about it? Or did we sort of cover most of the main points?
I think the only thing is that this is a book. This as a book is a love letter to Earth history.
Mm,
We talk about dinosaurs, but we also talk about all of life that has ever existed. And I hope that by in reading this book, people feel not only in awe, but also feel this sense of, wow, this current moment in Earth history is extremely precious and we have to take care of it. And,
yeah.
you know, an Earth with ice caps is actually pretty rare. An Earth that has grassland that never happened before. So it's again like our time is precious. This and many alien worlds have existed before on this planet.
Mm, mhm. It's true. Well, gosh, Rachel, I don't know how to thank you enough for A, taking the time out of your busy schedule, because I know it's about to get real crazy, to share with us everything that you've shared with us today, and now for the third time. But B, for really dedicating your time, now really your life, to learning about all of these important concepts and putting your gorgeous and insightful and just I don't know, just deeply fascinating spin on them so that all of us, whether we're talking about the littles, all the way up to, as old as you can get, can enjoy the visuals and also all of that information that you're able to pack into your books. They really just are fabulous. And I want to see more classrooms, whether we're talking about elementary school classrooms or college classrooms, using some of your books as part of their curriculum.
Oh, thank you, Kara. You know, us science communicators, we got to stick together out there.
Hell yeah. And I miss you now that you're not so close to me in LA. We were making plans offline to get together, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you again because we actually became pretty good friends after the first time that you came onto the show. Is that how we met? Because I wanted to interview you?
Yeah, we met,
It's
and
amazing.
it was literally our first interview. I was living in Kansas City, and I was about to move out to Los Angeles, and now I'm based in Santa Barbara, which is just like it's. I like to say Santa Barbara is like the last sphere of influence for LA, and then you start going into the Central Valley.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm on the outskirts out here in Santa Barbara County.
See, I need to come visit you because it's a little like the air is fresher. It's a little calmer out there. It's a good place to get away for sure. So even though I'll see you here in LA soon, we'll also make plans for me to come to your neck of the woods. But I can't thank you enough for being here, and I'm looking forward to whatever you have up your sleeves next.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of secret things being planned. So secrets everywhere. Thank you so much, Kara. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you too.
Absolutely. And everybody listening, thank you for coming back week after week. I'm really looking forward to the next time we all get together. to talk nerdy.